this is John from Heroes and Legends, and today I have another comic book haul. So this haul consists of the books I picked up for the week. It's actually a pretty small haul. I still haven't had a chance to go out and kind of check out some of the flea markets and such to see what's out there. Hopefully do that within a couple of weeks. Maybe get a bonus haul for you guys. But we'll start off with a Valiant book. I've been big on the Valiant books. This is Book of Death, part 2 of 4, written by Robert Venditti. And this book features Ninjak. This was a character that came out in the 90s that was kind of the end of the height of Valiant, and I think even just the name, it just seemed kind of 90s ridiculous, but they've done a really good job of painting a much more serious, I guess, or well-told story here with this character. And he feels more like a James Bond type that has ninja skills or what have you. So it's a cool character. They've actually done a good job since they've rebooted Valiant with Ninjak. So pick this up. This has been, everything by Valiant's been pretty solid. They do have a strong staff of writers. Next book that I picked up is another Valiant book, and this one is Raya, number 9. And again, strong writing by Matt Kint on this book. Not my favorite Valiant writer overall, but he does a really fine job. So he's done a great job on this book. So this is actually, the series is a Harvey nominee for Best Single Issue or Story, which you can see at the bottom there. But that's actually pretty awesome and well deserved. So Valiant's doing some good stuff. Third book I picked up this week is also a Valiant book. So a lot of good Valiant stuff coming out. This is Ivar Time Walker. This is by Fred Van Lent. He's done some great work on his Valiant stuff. I was kind of always lukewarm on him when he was writing for Marvel. He was good, but he never really kind of broke through for me. But here at Valiant, he broke through writing Archer and Armstrong. So his run on that was incredible. And he's doing a really fine job with Ivar Time Walker too. Just good stuff all around. So yeah, three Valiant books this week. Next I picked up is the Secret Wars tie-in / miniseries, I guess, and it's Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, number 4 by Dan Slott. I'm picking this up because I like Dan Slott. I haven't been super thrilled with the Secret Wars tie-ins. There's a couple I really like. I mentioned in the last video. Ultimate's End is awesome. Old Man Logan's been awesome. There's another one here I'm going to show you in a minute that's actually really good too. But for the most part, I haven't really been getting on board with them. So at this point, I'm just kind of waiting out the reboot of Amazing Spider-Man. But this is okay, I mean, for right now, until it reboots. That's what I'm really excited about. All right, next, I actually picked up a good amount of Marvel books this week, which is unusual, but picked up Star Wars number 8, and this is by Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron is an incredible writer, and he's done a fantastic job with the Star Wars reboot from Marvel. It's been really good. I just saw recently, I think it's in the new issue of Previews, they're doing a new series, and I forget who's writing it. Shoot. It's going to drive me crazy, but it was a very solid writer, I remember. And they're writing a story that takes place after Return of the Jedi to help start to bridge the gap between the movies. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm definitely going to be on board for that. My favorite book probably is Darth Vader right now that they're putting out, but this is a close second. Jason Aaron's great. It hasn't come out in a few weeks since I've been starting doing these videos, but he also writes Southern Bastards, which is incredible. I can't recommend that any higher. That's just one of the best books out there on the market today, and I hope that gets picked up for television because it's incredible. But I'll talk more about that obviously when that book comes in later in the month. But yeah, Star Wars is fantastic. Definitely a strong book. All right, we're down to kind of the top 3 picks of the week, and I'm doing more Marvel with a Secret Wars crossover, and that's the Extinction Agenda by Guggenheim, and this is actually good. So Mark Guggenheim's a good writer. He's done a lot of work for television, but he's written some good comics in the past too, and he does a good job with this. This is another case where, you know, I'm sure it was kind of thrust upon him, write a story that's interesting, that's kind of based on the Extinction Agenda, and he really did a good job with it. This is part 3. I'm not sure how many parts this is, probably 5, I assume. But yeah, this this story, basically, if you're a fan of the old Extinction Agenda story from the 90s, which was a great X-Men crossover, and it had some great talent back in those days. That was back when Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld were drawing, and Todd McFarlane was doing covers with Rob Liefeld, like this crazy art of the 90s. All the Image guys were still there, and it was a really cool story. And this kind of is a sequel to it. It's almost like what could have taken place right after Extinction Agenda ended, and of course it's in the Secret Wars universe, where it's kind of in its own little world and all of itself, and it's really good. So definitely check this one out. All right, here's another one. I don't really consider this a Secret Wars. This is just Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just been renamed for Secret Wars to Guardians of Nowhere. And this is another really strong book by Brian Michael Bendis. This is number 3, but basically if you've been reading Guardians of the Galaxy by Bendis, this is just a continuation of that. Now it does fall into the whole Secret Wars premise of they're on Nowhere, which is the kind of the place actually we see in the movie, which is the head of the Celestial. They're kind of trapped there because that's where they've been kind of locked in this whole Secret Wars world, and that story kind of revolves around that. But it's just your regular Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. So got Venom on the front there in his new costume. I don't know how I feel about that. Not to go off on a tangent, but since he's there staring me in the face, I got to talk about Venom for a second. Okay, so Todd McFarlane and David Michelinie created Venom back in the 90s, and I get it was the 90s, but actually it was 89 or 88, so it was late 80s going into the crazy 90s. But at the very beginning of that run, Venom was a brilliant character. Just the whole concept that Spider-Man accidentally created this villain that hates him so much and hates Peter Parker just as much, and the fact that his whole life was about getting revenge, and how he kind of had this sick, twisted idea of morality that he can basically do whatever needs to be done to kill Peter Parker or Spider-Man. If people get in the way, it's Spider-Man's fault. Like, it was a really interesting character with Eddie Brock as Venom. And it's somewhere along the line, and I'm sure it's because Eddie Brock and Venom fell into that file of old 90s stuff we don't want to repeat, that they kind of stripped him of the costume and they gave it to a bunch of different people over the years. When they gave it to the Scorpion, I don't know, that was just weird to me. And just no one can really beat Venom like the original. Now he's pretty much a hero, and he's Flash Thompson, which is to me a very different character, and I don't mind the Flash Thompson story. That's actually kind of interesting, but it just makes me always long for the days of having a villain that really could go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man, didn't set off his Spidey sense, and just was so dangerous, and the stakes were so high because he knew everything about him, knew his family. Those scenes where he'd go and show up and scare Mary Jane, or he'd go and be sitting on the couch talking to Aunt May when Peter Parker got home, and he's Venom, those were awesome. So if you never read that stuff, there's tons of trades of the McFarlane, Micheline, Venom stuff. Check it out. It's incredible. Micheline was an amazing writer, especially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and just does some awesome stuff. So anyway, I got off on a tangent there, but it had to be said, so there it was. All right, my pick of the week, and this is a DC book, actually the only DC book I picked up this week, but it's a small haul, and that's Justice League, and this is number 43. It's part 3 of the Darkseid Wars, and Jeff Johns is writing it. That's basically all I gotta say. Jeff Johns is probably my favorite writer in the industry. He can do no wrong. I'm sad that he only writes one book a month now, because he works on a lot of the crossover stuff with movies and television. I guess that's his real job now for DC, unfortunately, because I remember back in the days he used to write 4 or 5 books a month, and they were all just incredible. And this is now my only chance to read Jeff Johns every month. It's in Justice League. He does an incredible job, and if you're not familiar with what he does, is he definitely has a really strong passion for the history of DC that always comes out and is very evident in his work. But at the same time, there's a little bit of horror influence, not maybe as much as Scott Snyder, but just a little bit of a horror influence. You can tell that that's in the work he does, and he's very good at character development. That's his key, and that's why he's such a great writer. I mean, we see this with like Robert Kirkman in The Walking Dead. He develops characters and makes them interesting. He's not telling a story about events. The story isn't about Darkseid's back and he's fighting the Anti-Monitor and they might destroy the world. This is about Batman, it's about Superman, it's about Lex Luthor and their relationships and how they get along and how they work together for the greater good. It's very interesting. He writes villains. Of course, he wrote Villains United. He writes villains like nobody else. He really doesn't make them feel like shallow, one-dimensional villains. You feel sorry for the villains. You root for the villains when he writes them. He's really done a great job with Lex Luthor, who you know is not a great guy, but at the same time, he's doing good things, even if they are for maybe not the most noble reasons. And you want to see more. So really awesome stuff. You know, Superman usually comes off as kind of the almost the bad guy sometimes in that relationship with him and Luthor. So very good book. If you're not reading Justice League, I can't recommend it high enough. Pick it up. The trades are out there for the past stories if you want to catch up. But yeah, just incredible work by Jeff Johns. Other things I recommend by him, his Green Lantern run. He did the miniseries where Hal Jordan came back, and then he did was it like over 100 issues of Green Lantern. They're all amazing. All his work on Flash, Teen Titans. He's just done some incredible stuff over the years. Booster Gold, he did a 5-part story there. Venture Comics with Superboy, he did I think a 5-part or 6-part story there. Just some incredible stuff that he's done over the years. So yeah, and not to get off on too many tangents this time, but it was a small haul, so I talked a little bit about those last couple books, more than I probably would have normally. But yeah, that's all we got for the week. I will definitely see you next week with what I pick up. And there's also some interesting stuff in previews this week. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. Dark Knight Returns Part 3. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I'm going to read it. It's a train wreck that I'm not going to turn away from. So maybe it'll be good. I'll be optimistic. But yeah, we're going to have to read that. That's in the previews this time around, as well as the new Star Wars book and some other cool things. So check it out. So having said that, thanks for watching. As always, please remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day.